The easiest way to destroy a priceless masterpiece isn't to break it, it's to put it in the hands of someone who knows its price, but not its value. My name is Sienna. At 44, I am the miracle worker behind the scenes of the world-renowned Aurelian Vault, a private museum and restoration house for history's most fragile treasures. I've spent 2 decades in the basement labs, breathing life back into cracked oil paintings and tarnished royal gold. I never craved the spotlight. I preferred the company of shadows and the quiet whispers of the past. But I learned the hard way that when you remain a ghost, people start to treat you like you're already dead. The turning point of my life began with the restoration of the Silver Dawn necklace, a 200-year-old royal heirloom that had been missing since the Great Revolution. I spent 6 months under a microscope, painstakingly resetting microscopic diamonds and repairing the internal locking mechanism that had been jammed for centuries. It was my masterpiece. But on the night of the grand unveiling, the narrative shifted. My assistant, a 24-year-old named Jade, stepped onto the stage. With a practiced, photogenic smile, she presented the necklace as her own breakthrough achievement to the global media. The betrayal hit its peak when my mentor, the man I had viewed as a father figure, and the director of the Aurelian Vault, Mr. Sterling, stood beside her. He caught my eye in the back of the room and gave me a dismissive nod. Later, in his office, his words were cold. "Sienna, let's be realistic. You're 44. The board wants a fresh, vibrant face for the digital age. Jade is the new it girl of restoration. Just stay in the back, keep doing the heavy lifting, and let her take the credit. You have a steady paycheck. Why do you need the glory?" The pain was a cold, sharp needle in my chest. They saw my 20 years of expertise as a battery they could drain to power Jade's rising star. They thought I was a functional tool that didn't have the teeth to bite back. But they forgot one fundamental rule of restoration. To fix something, you have to know exactly where it is broken. And I knew exactly where they were flawed. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I simply smiled, a thin, polite mask of a smile. What Jade didn't know was that the internal locking mechanism of the Silver Dawn necklace contained a sovereign failsafe. It was a tiny hidden gear I'd installed, a signature of the original maker that I had slightly modified. Without the correct sequence of pressure, the necklace would permanently lock itself shut in 48 hours, trapping the diamonds inside a cage of silver. As I watched Jade bask in the camera flashes, I realized that my revenge wouldn't be a scandal I started, it would be a catastrophe they created for themselves. I returned to my home studio that night and opened a digital file I had titled Project Echo. For years, I had documented every corner I was told to cut, every ethical bypass Mr. Sterling had authorized to save money, and every secret the Aurelian Vault was built upon. "Jade," I whispered, watching a video of her interview on my tablet, "you love the light so much, but you don't realize that light only exists because of the shadows, and I'm the master of those shadows." The first domino had been placed. I wasn't just going to take my credit back, I was going to let them realize that without the invisible woman in the basement, their entire empire was nothing but a beautiful, empty frame. The game was no longer about restoration, it was about a total, silent deconstruction. The transition from the basement to the grand viewing room felt like walking into a trap I'd set with my own hands. I climbed the stairs slowly, my boots clicking rhythmically against the marble, a sound that seemed to sync with the frantic heartbeat of the room I was about to enter. As I pushed open the heavy oak doors of the Solstice Wing, the atmosphere was thick enough to choke on. Mr. Sterling was hovering over the velvet display, his face a mottled shade of purple, while Jade stood frozen, her hands hovering near the necklace as if it had turned into a serpent. Lady Genevieve, the family matriarch whose approval was worth $10 million in insurance and prestige, sat in a high-backed chair, her eyebrows raised in a cold, aristocratic arc. "Is there a problem, Jade? My grandmother's clasp was never this uncooperative." "It's just environmental expansion, my lady," Jade stammered, her octave higher than usual. She tried to force the hidden mechanism one more time, her knuckles turning white, but the sovereign fail-safe I had modified was doing its job perfectly. The more she struggled with the exterior, the more the internal gears bit down, locking the legendary diamonds behind a wall of impenetrable silver. Mr. Sterling saw me in the doorway and practically lunged at me. He didn't use my name. He grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the display. "Sienna, fix this," he hissed, his breath smelling of expensive coffee and desperation. "The humidity must have affected the rods Jade installed. Reset them, now." I looked at the necklace, then I looked directly at Jade. She was trembling. The it girl of the restoration world was staring at a catastrophe she couldn't explain. I leaned over the piece, my fingers grazing the cold metal. I knew exactly where the hidden pin was, the one that required a specific 3-point pressure sequence only I knew. "I'm confused, Mr. Sterling," I said, my voice calm and loud enough for Lady Genevieve to hear. If Jade re-engineered the internal tension system as she claimed in her interview this morning, I wouldn't want to interfere with her modern brilliance. My old-fashioned methods might actually damage her superior work. The silence that followed was heavy. Jade's eyes pleaded with me, a silent, pathetic prayer for salvation. She knew that if I didn't open that necklace, her career wouldn't just stall, it would incinerate in front of the vault's most important client. "Please, Sienna," Jade whispered, her ego finally crumbling under the weight of her own lies. I didn't open it. Instead, I stood up and turned to Lady Genevieve with a professional, apologetic smile. "My apologies, my lady. The Silver Dawn is a temperamental piece of history. It seems the new adjustments have created a structural conflict. I'll need to take this back to my lab for a deep synchronization. Only the person who truly understands the original maker's soul can coax it back to life." Mr. Sterling had no choice. He had to let me carry the velvet bust out of the room like a trophy. As I walked back to the basement, I could hear Lady Genevieve's voice echoing behind me, questioning the competency of the lead restorer. Back in the safety of my shadows, I placed the necklace on my workbench. Within seconds, I applied the secret sequence, and the clasp popped open with a satisfying musical click. I wasn't just holding a necklace, I was holding the vault's reputation in my hand. I opened my laptop and updated Project Echo. The first phase was complete. They had realized they couldn't live without the woman they tried to erase, but the lesson was far from over. I wasn't going to give them the fix for free. I was going to wait for the moment when they were willing to trade their dignity for my silence. Tick-tock, Mr. Sterling. The foundation is already gone. Now let's see how long you can keep the roof from falling. "Tick-tock, Mr. Sterling," I whispered, the light of my lamp reflecting off the silver dawn. "The foundation is already gone. Now let's see how long you can keep the roof from falling." The basement door groaned open 2 hours later. It wasn't the light, rhythmic step of an assistant. It was the heavy, uneven stride of a man who just realized his empire was made of cardboard. Mr. Sterling entered my lab, the fluorescent lights reflecting off the sweat on his forehead. He didn't look like a director anymore. He looked like a man drowning in his own ambition. Behind him, Jade lingered in the shadows of the hallway, her designer suit now looking like a costume she had outgrown. "Is it open?" Sterling barked, but the bark had lost its bite. I didn't look up from my workbench. I was meticulously cleaning a set of 19th century watchmaker's tools. The Silver Dawn is a loyal piece, Mr. Sterling. It only responds to the touch it recognizes. It seems the modern adjustments Jade mentioned were incompatible with its soul. "Enough with the metaphor, Sienna," he snapped, slamming a hand onto the wooden table. "Lady Genevieve is waiting in the gala hall. The insurance adjusters are questioning the structural integrity of the entire Solstice collection. If that necklace doesn't open for the final signing ceremony in an hour, the vault loses its accreditation. Fix it now." I slowly set down my brush and leaned back, crossing my arms. I looked him dead in the eye, the man who had called me a steady paycheck and an invisible ghost. I already fixed it, if in the safe, open and perfect. But there's a problem. Jade stepped into the room, her voice trembling. What problem? Just bring it up. We'll tell them it was a magnetic interference from the security scanners. I turned my gaze to her, and for the first time, she flinched. The problem, Jade, is that I've discovered a flaw in the provenance papers. While I was synchronizing the necklace, I noticed the internal hallmark doesn't match the registry you signed off on last month. You claim this was the 1822 original, but the hallmark I found, it belongs to the 1824 replica commissioned by the royal cousin. The blood drained from Sterling's face. The difference between the 1822 original and the 1824 replica was $5 million in market value and a lifetime of professional disgrace for the person who authenticated it. "You're lying," Sterling whispered, his voice cracking. "I don't lie, Arthur. I restore," I replied coldly. "You and Jade were so eager to push me aside that you didn't even check the internal engravings. You took the credit for the work, so you took the responsibility for the mistake. If I hand this necklace over now and the adjusters see that hallmark, your new face of restoration is going to be the face of a massive fraud case." The silence in the basement was absolute. I could hear the hum of the ventilation system, a steady drone that felt like a countdown. They were trapped. If they went up with the necklace, they risked exposure. If they didn't go up, they lost anyway. "What do you want?" Sterling finally asked, his shoulders sagging. I stood up, walking toward the safe. First, the press release for tomorrow's exhibition needs to be rewritten. Jade isn't the lead, she's the intern. My name goes on the plaque, the catalog, and the insurance filing. Second, the Project Echo files I've compiled regarding the vault's ethical shortcuts, those files stay in my private cloud. As long as I'm the senior conservator with full autonomy and a seat on the board, those files stay encrypted. "You're blackmailing us," Jade gasped, her eyes wide with shock. "No, Jade, I'm restoring the hierarchy," I said, pulling the silver dawn from the safe. The diamonds caught the light, sparkling with a cold, unforgiving brilliance. "I'm simply putting you back in the shadows where you can't do any more damage." I handed the necklace to Sterling. It was open, it was beautiful, and it was a collar around his neck. "Go," I commanded. "Go tell Lady Genevieve that the master has finished the work, and Jade, don't ever touch my tools again." As they hurried out of the lab, I sat back down in my chair. The adrenaline was fading, replaced with a deep, quiet satisfaction. I hadn't just saved the necklace, I had reclaimed my life. But as I looked at the Project Echo folder on my screen, I knew this was only the beginning. The Aurelian Vault had many more secrets, and I was the only one who knew where the keys were hidden. The shadows were no longer my prison, they were my kingdom. The public exhibition of the Silver Dawn necklace wasn't more than a display of jewelry. It was a theater of power. The grand hall of the Aurelian Vault was bathed in amber light, the air thick with the scent of lilies and expensive perfume. On the central pedestal, the necklace glowed, its clasp now functioning with a smooth, silent precision that only I could have mastered. I stood in the corner of the room, wearing a simple but elegant black silk dress. No one noticed me at first, and that was exactly how I liked it. I watched as Mr. Sterling stood before a group of international journalists, his voice booming with a forced joviality. Beside him, Jade looked like a ghost in a cocktail dress, her eyes darting nervously every time someone asked a technical question. The restoration process was arduous, Sterling said, his eyes briefly finding mine in the shadows. But under the expert guidance of our senior conservator, Sienna, we managed to preserve the original 1822 hallmark. It is truly a masterpiece of history. He had followed the script. My name was on the plaque. My name was in the catalog. But as the crowd applauded, a man stepped out from the circle of elites. This was Victor Thorne, the owner of the Midnight Gallery and Sterling's most bitter rival for 30 years. Victor didn't look at the necklace. He looked at me. "A beautiful lie, isn't it, Sienna?" Victor whispered, leaning against the pillar next to me. The smell of cedar wood and old paper followed him. "I don't know what you mean, Mr. Thorne," I replied, my voice steady. "Oh, please, I know Sterling. He couldn't distinguish an 1822 original from a 1950s costume piece if it hit him in the face. And that girl Jade, she has the hands of a butcher, not a surgeon. You're the only one in this building who could have made that silver sing again." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a low growl. "But I also know the hallmark on the 1822 original. I saw it 20 years ago in Paris, and I know for a fact that the piece on that pedestal is the 1824 cousin's replica." My heart didn't skip a beat. I had prepared for this. "History is often a matter of interpretation, Victor. Don't play coy with me," he chuckled, a dry, rasping sound. "Sterling is committing insurance fraud on a global scale by passing that off as the 1822 original. If I tell the board what I know, this vault becomes a crime scene by midnight. But I'm not interested in justice, Sienna. I'm interested in talent. Come work for the Midnight Gallery. Bring your Project Echo files with you. Help me burn this place to the ground, and I'll give you a laboratory that makes this basement look like a closet." This was the sharpest turn of the roller coaster. I had spent weeks reclaiming my place in the vault, only to be offered a torch to burn it all to the ground. Victor wasn't offering me a job. He was offering me a different kind of cage, where I would be his weapon instead of Sterling's tool. I looked across the room. Sterling was sweating under the spotlights. Jade was clutching a glass of champagne as if it were a lifeline. They were incompetent, yes. They were thieves of credit, certainly. But the Aurelian Vault held the history of 1,000 years in its bones. If Victor destroyed it, that history would be scattered to the highest bidders, lost to private basements and dark safes forever. "The Midnight Gallery is a place for predators, Victor," I said, turning to face him fully. "I'm a restorer. My job is to preserve things, not to destroy them, even when those things are flawed." "You're choosing to protect the man who tried to erase you?" Victor's eyes flashed with genuine confusion. "I'm not protecting him," I said, a cold smile touching my lips. "I'm owning him. There's a difference." I walked away from him, moving toward the pedestal. As I passed Jade, I whispered, "The insurance adjuster is heading toward the 1824 Hallmark section. You have 5 minutes to distract him with the new digital catalog you're so proud of. Don't fail me." Jade jumped as if she'd been struck by lightning and hurried toward the adjuster. I walked up to Sterling, who looked like he was about to faint. I adjusted his tie with a firm, motherly hand. "Victor Thorne knows Arthur," I said quietly, smiling for the cameras that were still flashing. "But don't worry, I've handled it. Just remember, the next time you think about replacing the Invisible Woman, remember that she's the only one who knows where all the bodies are buried, and she's the only one who can keep them from rising." Sterling nodded, his eyes wide with a mix of terror and gratitude. He realized then that he wasn't the director anymore. He was a figurehead. I was the one holding the keys to the vault, the secrets of the stones, and the future of his reputation. I walked back to my basement as the party continued above. The shadows were warm now. They were mine. I sat at my desk and opened a new file. I didn't title it Revenge. I titled it The Architect. The lesson was complete. You don't gain power by shouting. You gain power by becoming the only person who can solve the problems that everyone else is too arrogant to see coming. A year had passed since the night the Silver Dawn necklace became my tether to the throne of the Aurelian Vault. Life in the museum had changed. The air felt different, sharper, more disciplined. I was no longer a ghost in the basement. I sat at the mahogany table of the board of directors, my silence now interpreted as calculated power. Mr. Sterling was still the public face, but he never made a move without looking at me first. And Jade, she had become my most diligent student, her arrogance replaced by a hollow, frantic desire to actually learn the craft she once tried to steal. The final turn of the roller coaster arrived on a rainy Tuesday in London. An encrypted email landed in my inbox from an anonymous estate auction in Geneva. Attached was a single high-resolution photograph of a necklace. My heart, usually a steady metronome, skipped a beat. It was the Silver Dawn, not a replica, not the 1824 Cousins piece currently sitting in our display case. This was the true 1822 original, complete with the microscopic weeping willow engraving on the inner clasp that history books had thought was a myth. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The piece we had insured for $10 million, the piece that had built our current reputation, was officially a second-tier substitute. If this true original went to a rival like Victor Thorne, our masterpiece would be exposed as a fraud, and the Aurelian vault would crumble into a pile of lawsuits and disgrace. I summoned Sterling and Jade to my private office. The moment they saw the photo on my screen, the color drained from their faces. Sterling collapsed into a chair, his hands shaking. If this gets out, the insurance board, the family, we're finished, Sienna. We're going to prison. Jade looked at me, her eyes brimming with tears. What do we do? We can't outbid Victor Thorne. He's already tweeted about a secret acquisition he's making in Geneva. I looked at them, the man who had tried to erase me and the girl who had tried to replace me. For a second, I felt the urge to let the roof collapse. I could walk away with my reputation intact. I hadn't signed the original authentication papers. I could watch them burn. But then I looked at the photograph again. That necklace deserved to be home. It deserved the hands of a master, not the greed of a predator like Victor Thorne. I said, "We're not going to outbid him," my voice cold and focused. "Are you insane?" Sterling gasped. "Listen to me," I leaned forward. "Victor wants to humiliate us. He wants to buy that necklace and hold a press conference to prove ours is a replica. So we're going to give him exactly what he wants, with a twist. Jade, you're going to leak a memo to Victor's assistant. You're going to tell her that we've discovered our piece is the 1824 replica and that we are desperate to buy the Geneva piece to swap them before the annual audit." "But that's true," Jade cried. "Exactly," I smiled, and for the first time it was a dangerous smile. "But you're also going to leak that the Geneva piece has a fatal structural flaw, a stress fracture in the main diamond that will shatter if it's handled under high-intensity gallery lights. Tell him we're planning to buy it just to hide it forever." The plan worked with surgical precision. Victor Thorne, driven by his obsession with destroying Sterling, doubled his budget to outbid us. He spent $20 million to secure the Geneva necklace, convinced he was snatching our only salvation out of our hands. He didn't even stop to verify the stress fracture theory. He was too busy preparing the stage for our public execution. 2 weeks later, Victor invited the elite of the art world to the Midnight Gallery. He stood on his stage, the Geneva necklace gleaming under the lights. "Tonight," he announced, looking directly at me in the front row, "I expose the fraud of the Aurelian vault. This is the true 1822 Silver Dawn. The piece currently held by Mr. Sterling is nothing but a shadow." He beckoned his own lead restorer to verify the weeping willow mark under a live camera feed projected on a massive screen. As the camera zoomed in, the world saw the mark. It was perfect. It was undeniable. But as the restorer moved the light, Victor waited for the diamond to shatter. He waited for the flaw I had invented to humiliate us. It never happened. The necklace sat there, radiant and invincible. Then I stood up. The room went silent. "Mr. Thorne is correct," I said, my voice echoing with total authority. "That is the 1822 original, and we are so grateful to him for finding it. You see, the Aurelian vault has been searching for the twin of our 1824 Cousins piece for decades. We intentionally displayed our replica to draw the original out of hiding, and now, thanks to Mr. Thorne's generous investment, the set can finally be reunited." I pulled out a legal document, a pre-signed right of first refusal contract from the original royal family that I had unearthed months ago. It stated that if the 1822 original ever appeared at public auction, the Aurelian vault had the legal right to purchase it at the hammer price, provided we had the matching replica. Victor Thorne had spent $20 million of his own money to buy a necklace that he was now legally obligated to sell to us for the same price, money he had borrowed and couldn't afford to lose. He hadn't destroyed us, he had acted as our personal shopper. The look on Victor's face was a masterpiece of pure, unadulterated defeat. He had been outplayed not by a lie, but by his own arrogance. As we walked out of the Midnight Gallery, the 1822 Silver Dawn in our possession, Sterling turned to me, his eyes filled with genuine awe. "How did you know he'd fall for it?" "Because predators always look for the wound," I said, looking up at the night sky. "They're so busy looking for the crack in the glass that they never notice who's holding the hammer." I returned to the vault that night. I placed both necklaces side by side in a new reinforced display. The lesson was finally over. I had protected the history, I had humbled the rivals, and I had secured the future. I was no longer the master of shadows, I was the master of the light. And as I turned off the gallery lamps, I knew that the most beautiful thing about the truth isn't just that it sets you free, it's that it gives you the power to rewrite the ending.